Welcome to the ILM Solutions Podcast, where we discuss intentional living, self mastery, and solution filled stories. I'm your host, Iris L. Mendez. Let's dive in. Welcome back. Today's topic is about intentional living and working. So, did you know that the average person spends about 90,000 hours at work over their lifetime? This is from Harvard Business Review on an article where they mention the statistic, and the article is titled Why You Should Stop Trying to Be Happy at Work. And this particular article was interesting for those of us who are in the matrix. If you know, you know. And you are trying to navigate the day to day of working, living, focusing on family, friends, a social life, passion projects, all the things. And in this particular article, it highlights how to find meaning in work rather than pursuing happiness as your primary goal. So, we're going to dive a little bit into that today as it relates to self mastery and understanding that a chunk of your existence is spent working in some way, shape, or form. Whether you clock in for someone else or you run your own business, as I have, and I understand that that definitely takes a whole lot more time than a commitment of 40 hours a week when you do work for someone. And so, if you are navigating being stuck in this matrix, whether it's in corporate, higher education, social work, any industry, I hope this podcast episode resonates for you. The reality is that when it comes to the work that we do, and this is something that I learned as well as taught when I got to graduate school and had to take a spirituality and social work class, or spirituality and religion and social work class. I was a student for this class. It's one of my favorite classes at Widener University, and also I had the opportunity to teach it one summer. And one of the themes of the class is that, as future social workers, psychotherapists, etc., people in the field, when you're working with clients, understanding how their identity, right, their spirituality, their spiritual identity, their religious identity plays a huge part in the decisions that they make. And so when it comes to self mastery, understanding yourself and understanding how that identity shows up and plays a huge part in the work that you choose for yourself, in the pursuit of happiness, as if you will, in also the actual decision that you make around the purpose of why you're here. So tying purpose, passion into the work that you do, the labor, right? And the companies and the people that you tie yourself to. And again, it's very deeply tied to who we are. So think about what it is that you've done over your lifetime. What does your resume look like, right? And how you see yourself. What's the energy that you bring to the world? And is the work that you do aligned with what you believe might be your purpose? And so sometimes, most times, that doesn't always line up, whether you, again, are working for yourself or someone else. And so I want you to think about what you do for a living. And also ask yourself, do you tie your identity to what you do for a living? I feel like it's almost an unspoken judgment when you're networking or you're even at a family function and someone asks you, what do you do for a living? Or what do you do? Subconsciously, we're sizing people up with that question, right? We may not realize that we're doing it, but essentially, that answer is going to either enhance or increase your perception of that person or decrease it. And so I want to share that and highlight that because I hope as a listener you're asking yourself, is this something that I subconsciously do or unconsciously rather do? And why do I do it? And do I tie my identity to my title, right? And so these subconscious thinking or narratives can make or break us. It can internally shrink us, make us feel smaller, right? I feel that our work, especially in the US, our work is very much tied to how we're viewed in society. And so, if no one's ever told you this, you are more than your job title. Your identity is bigger than that office, that cubicle, that 9 to 5 schedule, that 7 to 7 schedule for those of you in healthcare, 11 to 11, those 12-hour shifts. I remember that. Don't miss those, but hey, to each their own, right? And so you're bigger than your LinkedIn profile. Like you're so much more than what fits neatly into a resume or a business card. And I think that's what intentional living and intentional working is all about, is being able to understand that yes, you wear many hats throughout the day and you have these different identities, but at the end of the day, a job, a company can easily replace you. But at home, you can't easily be replaced. And so tie your identity mostly to the things in life that matter, right? Now, that also means being able to show up at work with purpose, understanding that work is part of life's journey, but not the whole story. And so clock in for yourself. Don't just clock in for others. If you have to navigate being back or being in the matrix, and I say back because for me, I've left it, went back, left it, went back, and life circumstance happens. I'm not going to shame myself or judge myself over it either because I have that eclectic background and experience of understanding what it is to solely work for yourself and also work for others and then also do it at the same time simultaneously. And that's a lot. That takes a lot. So own your, special blueprint or thumbprint rather of who you are, the collection of all your education and your experiences, right? The next part that I wanted to talk about as it relates to intentional working, right? Intentional work life, intentional working and intentional living is that when you know yourself and you do the inner work, there are basic practices or ways of being that can really truly set you apart from others in the workplace. And so, I mean, the reality is the workplace or workplaces can be tough. Sometimes they're even toxic environments. Recently on my TikTok and YouTube, I posted several contents. One of them around, professionalism in the workplace. Another one around how to stand out in the job market, today's job market. And then another one around toxic environments in the workplace and healing from workplace trauma, because that's also true. That's also a real living experience. And I invite you to go take a look at that on my YouTube as well as my TikTok, ILM underscore solutions, and understand that, workplace trauma is real, workplace toxicity is real, and sometimes that can even impact how we show up or don't show up in the workplace. And so, one of the main things I wanted to highlight is what I feel are some tips that I've learned along the way that have helped me to navigate workplaces. And I'm going to share them with you. These were on my TikTok as well, 11 workplace professionalism tips that I wish I knew when I first started working way back when. Now, let me date myself here because I've been working since I was about 14 or 15 years old, and I'm 37. So, my resume is rather extensive and impressive, and I've worked for many different great companies and also have had great leadership and also not that great leadership. Great coworkers and also not that great coworkers. And so here's some things that I wish I knew, especially for those of you who are new in the workplace. Maybe you're fresh starting off, or maybe you've taken a break, a long break. I have friends who have, gone on to be mothers 10 plus years and then go back to school, receive higher education degrees, and then go back into the workforce. And these are just some tips that I wish that someone would have told me. So we're going to dive right into them. Number one, and this is probably one of my favorites, don't overly share or go to work to make friends. Trust me. Work isn't like haha kiki it up with coworkers. You might find a few gems. I will say there are some solid people in my circle who I have worked with and continue to maintain somewhat of a professional relationship with, but these people have become more friends than anything or family. And sometimes it's hard to understand or know or trust your gut or your intuition and your instinct on who you can and cannot share certain things with. But rule of thumb, just don't overshare. This can leave you very vulnerable. People could potentially use that information in a not so positive way. And what I would say is focus on building rapport versus a friendship. I want to share one story where I thought there was a girl at work who was my friend. And she actually was an intern. This was a long, long time ago. She was an intern. And what I didn't realize was that the whole time she was shadowing me, she was actually gunning for my job. And so I actually ended up on a performance action plan because of this person. One of the things that she went back and told my supervisor, now I'm Puerto Rican, yo hablo español, so don't get it twisted. I do speak Spanish, and I have worked in several bilingual capacities. My title has been bilingual in several spaces. I've gotten paid for the bilingual rate. I've taken tests to prove that, my Spanish is up to par for what the company needs. Anywho, she was also Hispanic, spoke Spanish, but she was not Puerto Rican. Her Spanish was a little bit different. I'm not even going to say what she was because I don't want to make this a, Puerto Rico versus whoever. It's not that. I love all my Latinos and all my Hispanics. But this particular person was out to get me. She didn't like my Spanish. She thought her Spanish was a little bit more formal. And we're Puerto Rican. We don't speak, vosotros and all that. We don't speak the Spaniard formal language, right? Not saying she was from Spain either, but so she went to my boss and said that she did not think that my Spanish was good enough for me to be doing the role in bilingual. I ended up on a performance action plan. My supervisor actually sat in and observed several of my cases. Eventually, I was taken off of the performance action plan, and then I ended up actually leaving the company not that long after, just because I was already looking for other things at the time. And as soon as I left, the intern was gunning for my job. So, all that to say, be mindful of who you're oversharing with. Be mindful of who you are thinking that you're, friends at work and you're really not. So don't go to work to make friends. My next one. Always, always know your scope of practice, your scope, meaning what you were hired to do, the job duties, and all that, and know your boundaries. So reinforce your work scope and your boundaries always. Stay in your lane and don't allow others to try to take you out your lane. Protect that, protect your energy. And so I'll share another story where I had to reinforce my boundaries. Now, this is when I worked in an emergency room. And as you can imagine, a lot of the things that come, through that emergency room, things I cannot unsee and things I cannot unhear. And so there was a very tragic case, and there was a very odd request from one of the nurses essentially asking me to go and give the parent of the patient a hug. I'm sorry, y'all. Hugs, that was not in my job description. It's also uh it could even be unethical in some respects. I have a license to uphold. So it's like, what? You want me to do what? Why do you think I should be doing that? And so yeah, don't let anybody tell you what your job is or what you should be doing. And if they need a reminder of your scope or what it is that you do, then go ahead and tell your supervisor or run it by up the chain of command, talk to HR if it becomes a problem. Always reinforce your scope and always reinforce your boundaries. And by boundaries, I mean like what time is your job start and what time does it end? Okay, then you should not be working past that unless it's being compensated in some way and you consented to that. So, reinforce your scope and your boundaries. Moving on to the next one. Number 3, if you show doubt in yourself, others may doubt you too. And this is also key if you are in management. If you show doubt in yourself, your team may doubt you. The people who are directly reporting to you, and energy is transferable, so be mindful of what energy they're absorbing from you, because if you are a person who is doubting yourself and they can visibly see that, they may also doubt themselves also. So just show up with confidence, you know, be mindful that even if you're in a leadership position, confidence doesn't necessarily mean arrogance. It reminds me of that quote, I'm not cocky, I'm confident. But if you, what is it? If you say something is a compliment, I'm not cocky, I gotta look it up. You don't know what I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure it's Jada Kiss. But anyway, moving on to the next one. Don't create This is this is one that I really have to highlight. Don't create content or go live or do anything that can be proven that you did it at work and you did it during work hours. Listen, it don't take that long to log into TikTok and scroll a little bit and see that you are all out there just creating content on the clock. That might get you fired. Respect your employer's time. They pay you for that. And also your own professional integrity. Go hustle on your own time, right? I'm not creating this podcast when I'm clocked in for somebody else. So don't create content or go live. Here's another one. Don't post in your work clothes or like outside of your job where people can clearly see the logo on your shirt or they can see the background and where you might be as you're talking about work or creating content about like something completely different, but yet you're in work like clothes. Don't do that. Don't do that. I see so many people who get fired over things um because they're just posting stuff on company time, or they're representing in the company's eyes, they're representing the company in a negative light. So next one, don't discuss client cases, students, customers, consumers, whatever you call the population you serve. Don't discuss these cases, and even workplace drama, workplace issues. Don't discuss it on social media at all, at all, at all. Period. Don't do it. All right. Somebody's gonna find out where you work. Somebody's gonna end up telling the company, "Here, this is what they're posting." Also, if you're applying to other jobs, right? If you're looking for work, they're gonna check your social media, and they don't want to see you bashing or talking about the cases, bashing your employer or talking about the cases, especially if you work in a place where, you got to protect people's like confidentiality, you got to protect their demographic information and all of that, their identity. Confidentiality is sacred. So you need to make sure that you are not doing that, especially those of you who go online and complain about work. That new employer might see that and they see, okay, well, they might go and complain about us too. So just be mindful. Here's number 6. Go to work, make your impact, right? Because we're living with purpose and we're finding, just like that article from Harvard Business School said, we're finding meaning in the work that we do versus trying to find a job that makes us happy. No, we're just finding meaning in the work that we do. Go to work, make your impact, clock the fuck out, leave work and go home. Leave work at work. Balance is key. You are not your job, and your life is not your whole job. Number 7, prepare to others. Take your PTO. Take all your lunch breaks, PTO, and any entitled rest periods. Take them at all times. Rest is productivity and it fuels productivity. It also protects your mental health. So don't glorify that you overwork, that you work more than everybody else. You work more hours, you're there earlier, you're there later, you eat during your lunch breaks, or you eat at your desk during your lunch breaks and work through your lunch. No, 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 no. That's a no. Don't do that. Okay. Next, don't mix work with pleasure. This is number 8. Listen, again, you didn't go to work to make friends, and you also didn't go to work to be doing matchmaking. This can get messy. It blurs lines, creates unnecessary drama. Sometimes you even have to involve HR if it's an actual, official, formal, romantic relationship. Just don't do it. Don't do it, girl. Don't do it. Or boy, or human. Just don't do it. Number 9, employers and recruiters check your social media. They also check your emails, them Teams, internal chats, Slack. Just be mindful of what you're saying at work, especially about work, and whatever communication platforms you guys use, email, Outlook, Teams, Slack, whatever it is, just be mindful of those internal chats. And then again, recruiters do check your social media, especially your LinkedIn. They do try to search you on TikTok and all of that, Instagram. Your digital footprint, your digital presence will reflect your professional self. And I don't think that that's necessarily fair, because how you show up outside of work should not necessarily impact your work, but it does. It really does. I mean, how many people get fired for doing things outside of work or off the clock? And they very well should be, because they're not, they're not allowing themselves to be represented in a good light, and it really can impact the reputation of a company that you're working for. So, just be mindful. Just be mindful. Number 10, document everything. Document everything or it didn't happen. My fellow social workers out there, you already know this was something we learned back in the day with our documentation. If you didn't document it, it did not happen. Now, you may not be working with clients and cases, but let me tell you, baby, you need to be making sure that you document everything, you keep all your emails, or it did not happen. I don't erase no emails. It did not happen if you if you don't have proof of it. Records protect and also maintain accountability. So make sure you are CYA. What's CYA? Covering your ass. Okay. Last, number 11. Never record or post clients, students, customers, consumers, none of that on social media, especially if you did not get their consent, right? And especially minors. Like, I see a lot of teachers doing this. I'm sorry, I don't mean to call y'all out. Thank you for the work that you do, but please, and daycares, I see this too. Please protect the babies, protect their privacy, and protect their digital footprint. You don't even know if their parents want them on social media, their faces, right? We all know that the internet is big and there are people with nefarious intentions. And so respect people's children. Don't post them on social media. I actually have seen school districts do this, like actual school district Facebook pages or something, and they'll post the entire class, like, Miss Monroe's second grade class just, went on this trip or, just completed whatever. And every single student baby's face is on there. Let's protect the babies. Let's be mindful. Don't post your clients, consumers, students, none of that. So those are my 11. I probably could have two more tips, but overall, I just wanted this to be an episode about, living intentionally at work, right? Recognizing that the workplace culture, is real, and, you have to be mindful of how to navigate that culture, but also staying true to your identity, right? Living your true purpose path, aligning it and finding meaning in the work that you do. For those of you who are waking up every day, like, I hate my life, I hate what I do, right? Let's switch that, let's reframe that, right? And so, I feel like if you're at a point where you are in a toxic environment and the matrix is closing in, it might be time to think about a pivot. Now, that could be a whole nother podcast episode that I do on pivots in careers. I have done several, and also what the job market looks like today to make the pivots. So if you guys want to hear about that, let me know. And, I just want to share for those of you who are navigating that, we often feel like, or we often assume that others may have the same knowledge, education, experience, and expertise, and even the same, quote, common sense as we do, but that's really never the case. So own your experiences, because each of us is a collector of experiences, if you will, and a collector of experiences and skills, and a quote renter of titles. So just like a thumbprint, your combined journey is unique in its own way. So own it, own your expertise, own your education and your lived experiences. And remember to always lead with confidence in the workplace. Confidence also comes from clarity and reflection. So making sure that you are practicing that self inquiry. Um, and yeah, overall, I feel that we should not tie our identities to the work that we do, and be mindful of that work life balance. And so I do want to highlight my book, Healing My Four Bodies. I do have some tips on there related to navigating workplace trauma. And, check out those recent tips on YouTube and TikTok, ILM_solutions. I'll be definitely posting some more content on there. And stay tuned for next month's episode. I also want to plug that on Tuesday. What's today? Let's see. Is it 2 Tuesdays from now? I gotta look at the date. Yep, the actually it's on Wednesday, June the 4th. I'm going to be doing a Heal Her conversation on LinkedIn with one of my professional acquaintances, my cohort cousin. I call her cohort cousin because we were just a part of a leadership cohort together and we just recently graduated. So, shout out to us. So, yeah, tune in to myself and Jasmine. Find me on LinkedIn for you to get the information so that you can tune in at 9 p.m. where we're going to be having a conversation. And keep tuning in, keep liking, keep sharing. Make sure you subscribe. And remember, you are not your job title. You are your story, your spirit, and your soul's purpose. Thanks for tuning in.